Hello, and welcome again to another episode of Creatives Chat. I'm your co-host, Rusty Hill with Retro Earth Studio, and joining me is...
Hey, I'm Peter from Full Spectrum Performance, co-host to Creatives Chat.
So tell me, Peter, who's on our show today?
Oh, Rusty, we have an incredible photographer, videographer, writer, rapper, just overall awesome being, James Gerde. Excited to have him on today.
All right, let's bring him in the room and start our combo.
I'm curious, what are some of the latest projects that you're really excited to be working on coming up?
Shoot,
If you had to pick the top two.
it's so hard because in my line of work, there's so much stuff that I can't really talk about. But I'm doing something with my man Ryan Van Huygen very soon. That it's unfortunate that I can't tell the story that just happened the other day that put things in place for this project we're working on. But it's phenomenal. It's absolutely incredible. And it's going to be one of the most amazing projects I put together. It's going to be a little more satirical and kind of funny, but because that's kind of his thing a lot of the time. But I'm really excited to put it together. And then the other one that I can talk about is I have another album coming. The album's mastered with the exception of the song that I have him and Chris King on.
Oh, dope.
Yeah, I have all of my favorite artists in the town, from Tane Marshall, Chris King, my dude Natural, Ryan Van Huygen's on there, Nobi's on there, Digital's on there.
There you go.
Yeah, really, everybody has a place on this one. It's the one with Jabber was amazing, but we made it kind of quick. We just made a few songs and then said, let's put them out. This one I've been working on for almost 2 years.
Okay, cool. There we go. So that's that depth behind it. So in terms of this ongoing project, do you feel like it's almost just like a snapshot of those 2 years in the present that's built it?
Yeah, it was kind of a return to form for me. I took a break from music up until right before that, up until a couple months before I started on that project. I had gone through a lot years before, sobered up, and still wasn't back to confident enough or feeling like I knew what I wanted out of music or even art at that point. And I was kind of just getting back into it. And that's when Digital moved into the radio station studio, and he had his own recording studio in there. And he had me in to record a song that I had already had the beat for. I had already had it written. I had already tracked it myself. I just did a bad job. And we recorded it. And then as it just kind of kept going, I kept kind of making songs, reaching out to people. The next one I made was with Tane. And then it just kind of kept going. And then, yeah, recently it's gotten so close to being finished. And we finally just went through and mastered everything. And it really just feels like a return to form. Is like, hey, I'm a musician again, because I didn't feel that way for a long time, because I took a long break, 2 years not recording anything, not trying to do that at all. And that's when I picked up the camera and stuff too. But then I realized it was missing from my life. And so it's this is the project that really represents me as an artist more than anything I've ever done.
Yeah, that's what's up, man. I'm so excited for that. I can't wait. When is it gonna drop?
I need to get that verse from Marshall and master that song.
So it's essentially just another few more weeks.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna call him as soon as we get done here, because and be like, hey, can that happen today? But yeah, as soon as I get that, I made an album cover for it it's kind of photoshopped together collage with everybody who's on the album, with me and the main beat maker I used in the center. And then I gave it to an artist who's going to draw a representation of it, because I wanted it to be hand drawn.
That's so sick.
And so I'm waiting to see how that turns out. I just gave it to her the other night. And so at the end of the week, I think she said she'd have it for me. So then I'll have the artwork, I'll have the final song done, and then I can really start looking at a release date. But I do want to get it out as soon as possible. Right now is a great time to put out content. People are bored and need stuff to do.
Oh, dude, right? And I think that's something that's cool to see, though, is that everything is kind of aligning in this. In truth, it's a very transformative time, just of like the planet, just where we're at, in the time frame of existence. And it's interesting to see all these projects coming together for so many people, where they finally feel like that essentially the entire existence of our lives until up this moment, when like we're finally getting those reins back and really getting our strides and breaking a lot of the paradigms. Like, we're seeing celebrity culture and that kind of inauthentic representation of yourself. We're seeing all that stuff just kind of break away. And that's just, again, it's just such a cool and magical time for it to really just align like this, for it to be like, now is when it's ready. Now is when you're getting going. Now is when everyone really feels like they're able to be themselves. And I think more and more people are picking up on it. And I think, oh, I'm just excited, man, just to hear that and just to know your journey a little bit. Like, oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and on that too, because it reminded me of I saw somebody say it. I can't remember who it was, but said that this is like the first time in history that the entire world's been experiencing the same thing at the same time. Because like even when there have been mass scale things, the world's never been connected like it is right now. You know,
Mm.
and that to me that's a very interesting thing, and why celebrity culture is breaking away. We don't rely on celebrities the way we used to, because back before the internet was as big or phones were as important, the only source of media we got was from turning on the TV or the radio, and whatever was there was there. So those influencers were much more important. Now everybody's an influencer,
Yes.
uh
Yes.
and we're all experiencing the same thing. So now we all suddenly have something in common. We could completely different sides of the world, but like, hey, this COVID shit, that's pretty weird, right? you know and that's to me that's a huge trip. And it so as terrible as all of this is, in for so many reasons, there's a silver lining to it, that like it's kind of bringing people closer together too.
Yes, and it's nail on the head, man. Nail on the head. It's allowing people to tap into that oneness, that beingness, that isness that we all can come to experience, regardless of your method. But it's something that when we all have a moment to really break the barriers of those points of separation and division that are always projected on us, especially by like, the media and all these things. And when you have such a disconnect from that now, it's a breath of fresh air, because it feels like, I really do feel like we've been in such a contracted, tense state for so long, for all the different reasons of, war, strife, corruption, greed, all the different stuff, that it's finally a moment for some to at least like release, and it's another moment for others to really awaken to some of the more malicious things of our society and aspects of it. So it's very wild, man. It's a time of awakening as I see it, because more people are resonating with that truth. Like we say authenticity, but it's like it's just that profound truth, man, that it's like we're all historically beautiful. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
we're all connected, man. Like we're all beautiful, unique beings that are, like, always said, just like influencers. Each of us has the power to impact and transform someone's life, and I think we're finally at an age where we can utilize that. And again, life forces people's hands to either adapt or not, right? And like with technology, we're seeing it. People are still getting connected, and even more so, we're finally using the technology to connect with people like it's meant to. Like that to me is like super exciting, because I'm like, yes, finally people are done playing Candy Crush, all those stupid games. They're like talking with their family. They're establishing relationships. They're reaching out to friends. Like, oh, it's a breath of fresh air, man.
Oh yeah, it really is. And it in a sense it sucks that it took a pandemic to get us here, but like I don't think we're gonna just revert back to what we were, though. I think that a lot of this stuff is gonna stay the same. When it is safer to go out and spend more time with people, people are going to be a lot more communal in that sense. People are really going to be wanting quality time and experience with people they care about. and treating their time like it's a little bit more important than it was. Again, yeah, you go work your 9 to 5, you get off, you play Candy Crush while Netflix plays in the background, and maybe you smoke some weed and drink a glass of wine, and that's the night. And even now, I'm starting to get out with people a little bit more, still at a safe distance and stuff. But shot a music video yesterday, got home for a little while, and just kind of kicked it, looking through footage, and then went out and skated around Green Lake in the middle of the night with one of my friends. Just because, I mean, nobody has work in the morning. Like, let's go. And I haven't done that stuff since I was like 16. So it's great.
Man, that's such like when you look at the way it's made people really reevaluate their time and their happiness. Because I mean, I'm sure the first few days, maybe even weeks, is the quarantine for some people, that same just kind of maybe like lethargic lifestyle, just getting in, like binging everything that you've wanted to binge and like really getting that fix done, and you're still left kind of dissatisfied. I've seen so many people reaching out and just doing different things that they've never done before, just like creating things that and experiencing joys they haven't gotten to since they were kids. Like, it's life always kind of forces us to either put up or show up, as I see it, and if we don't allow ourselves to really capitalize on that energy, it's going to consume us. Because there's, as much as we talk about the good, there is so much suffering and strife going on with this, where I'm always grateful. I think that that theme of shared experience and trauma should really emulate to gratitude, because so many people didn't make it out. I just recently lost someone that I went to university with, and again, we're seeing suicides and overdoses on the rise. And during these times when you really lack that inner love of having creative outlets and things, this type of this type of transformation, this type of energy that's in the world right now can definitely burn you and destroy things. So again, I think you're right, though. It's definitely a point to be grateful on afterwards, and I hope that gratitude stays with people. I personally think it will, but to each their own. So I only could hope that each of us always remains grateful.
Oh yeah, and I think a lot of my path is interesting with that. It was like last week I was talking to a friend, and they were talking about, oh, you remember like high school parties and stuff like that, and I was like, no, man, I didn't fit into that crowd of people. When everybody else was at parties and just like doing that type of stuff, I was out in the woods having a fire doing some mushrooms with my friends when I was like 17. And like, I sobered up when I was like just about to turn 22. But back then that was a big opening to me. I'm extremely introverted, and in a lot of senses I don't come off that way anymore because I've been pushed to have to learn extroverted tendencies for my line of work. But I grew up, I was very introverted, and I was extremely anxious all the time, bad social anxiety. And so I didn't have a ton of friends growing up. I had some, but like I was a really anxious person, so I really liked being alone. And I did a lot of soul searching and just looking inwards and being introspective, and I really enjoyed the things that I could find when like looking through my mind. And that's what eventually led me into messing around with psychedelics and stuff, and then also led me to finishing with psychedelics and being like, I can move past those things, because that was an interesting doorway to teaching me a few things. But now I've figured out that I can do that stuff on my own, through meditation, astral projection, that type of stuff now can take me really far, especially since I've found how to calm down my mind naturally and not kind of have to like drink it down. Which was and that was a big thing, was, uh, throughout everything I was going through, I kind of like self-medicated with stuff. And that's what eventually got me into alcohol addiction. It was an easy way to make myself feel less paranoid, but not the right way to do that. Like really not the right way to do that. So getting out of that and having to reteach myself all that stuff, I feel like I'm only mentally stronger. And so connection is about the most important thing to me. when it comes to anything. If I have a strong connection with somebody or some sense of bonding or something, like full ride or die, like you call me at any hour of the night and need something, I'm there, like no matter what, because like I find that stuff to be really important. Like if somebody's setting aside time and energy in their mind or in their life to put towards me, that's like that's priceless. You know, there's nothing more important than that in the world than the fact that somebody else is willing to give part of themselves back to you. So I find, so that's why I find connection to be that important.
I love it, man. No, it's just, it speaks so much to the heart. And I've, those listening, I've gotten a chance to know Gerde, and we went on quite the Hawaii adventure together. And that was really my first chance to really get to chat and talk. And I just always love to see how many parallels we have, not only in that, you could say like the psychedelic, or as I like to call them, consciousness expanders.
Yes.
It's like you see this, just kind of common thread of genuineness. And it's, it seems like such a cliche word, but it's a different type of sincerity. I don't think people understand that. And it's, you touched base and really like put it into words in such a good way that it's, that's the selflessness of people that I want in my life. And that's one of the reasons why we're in each other's lives when we cross paths in the groups that we, that we intermingle with, is because that is kind of that understanding and mutual respect that we all have for each other, because we know that it's like time is an important commodity, and we've all been through so much and chewed and stewed and reflected and grown that we understand how special and grateful this gift really is called life. And to really put yourself out there and to speak your heart and to just be your most genuine self, like it just puts so much weight into why I vibe with you and rock with you, man. Like, because again, it's all about connections. And I think I learned that lesson the hard way, because I had the opposite journey, as a kid, where I had a lot of like superficial friendships and a lot of just more so being out there. Because for me, it was, again, like my home life, I had more of like a hostile home life. So for me, it was more like the social circle was my escape. So I was just I was cool being around, but it hit me in like kind of like my early youth, like teenage high school years, to recognize that it was like, oh, okay, so I have a lot of people around me, but I don't really have anyone that's like with me in that sense of connection, and it's like, and just getting into trouble and learning those things the hard way and breaking those superficial like friendships and bonds. Like it's such a valuable lesson. And I'm just really curious, in terms of your use and kind of like self-medication. I know you reached a point within psychedelics that you were like, okay, I've learned what I can. And I'm just curious, what was that lesson? Like, what was that final lesson? What was that final moment when you're like, I got this?
As much as I wish there was a profound, I did it this one time and I was like, that's it. I got it. I'm good on these. No, it was more like I took it too far. And you can hear people talk about that. I think there was a John Lennon interview where he talked about, oh, the reason I stopped taking LSD was because at a point it crosses over and you start having more bad trips. And I don't really like the term like bad trip, mostly because I never did them recreationally. I never did them just because it was a good time. And I personally don't think they're fun to do. I thought they were informative, but I think there's a good balance of good and bad. Sometimes it's really good and sometimes it's really not. And you can learn from all of that. But what it was I had learned as much as I could for them by the time I was probably 19, but I would still kind of do them occasionally at festivals or when they were around, just to see like if I could push the boundaries a little farther. Maybe if I did more of them and tried them in this environment and did this, uh and they kind of continued to tell me exactly like no, you don't need this. And I wouldn't really listen for a while. You know and it was at the point that I which is funny because kind of the last experience that I had with them was me not even trying to do them. I accidentally dosed myself. And
What?
it was at the height of,
Oh, no.
I was at Oregon Country Fair, just outside of Eugene. I go every year. I'm really bummed it's canceled this year, but I go every year, even now that I'm sober and stuff. But it was the last year before I sobered up, and I was, at the point where I was drinking like a half gallon of vodka a day to survive. Like that's, if I didn't drink for a half an hour, I'd get the shakes and stuff. And I was trying to push through that and act like it wasn't a problem, even though I was around a bunch of people, and it was very obvious that I was not okay. And I knew myself that I wasn't okay, but I didn't really know how to stop without medical help. I didn't, seizures and stuff. So I just kind of kept pushing because I wasn't smart enough to make that connection yet. And I kind of knew the guy that was the plug, and so people would come looking and I'd go help out, and he had gel tabs and I'd go get them and I'd hold them in my hand and bring them back. And then I got really, really high. And then I was experiencing alcohol withdrawals because I couldn't drink. When you're that kind of high on stuff like that, you can't
Yeah.
I couldn't get hard liquor into my stomach. So I'm now experiencing alcohol withdrawals. I'm dry heaving with my friend holding back my hair, and I'm tripping balls. And that was one of the worst experiences of
It's a
my
laugh,
entire no, it's so laughable because it was 6 hours of like pure agony, like just the
That's
worst. Um and after that was when I was like, I really don't need this, and I really need to make some differences in my life, and I need to get away from drinking. Still though, wish I would have actually known how to do that at the time. As it turns out, I didn't, and 3 months later I flipped my car onto a golf course. That's when I sobered up. It was 3 months later. I almost died, and it took that and a long court battle and 5 years of probation, which I still have a couple years left of, but all of that turned into a blessing. um it showed me then that that's what I needed to do, was get away from it. And so I still, more than anything, I wanted to turn around my life, but I didn't know how to. And then the
Mhm.
universe showed me. The universe like said, no, this is time. It's done, and put me through hell and back. But it forced me to fix what I was doing. And I guess
Yeah.
didn't force me. It's still willpower. I know a lot of people that even going through all of what I'm doing would still, relapse and stuff like that. But that was never a part of my story.
Yeah.
It, because I knew what I wanted. I just didn't know how to get there. And I ended up
Mm.
getting the help. So that's more of the story of why I stopped them. And I never went back, after I sobered up. There just hasn't been a reason to, because I don't feel like there's more I can get from them after
Yeah.
years of use with psychedelics, and having that experience to top it off. Still very profound, but a little bit different than when you were like, where was the you got it moment? No, it was more like the I need to not anymore.
I love it. I love it. Well, purely because it kind of goes to what happens in life as, I mean, it's just like my perspective, how I see things is, life always gives us these opportunities to either get that new path or kind of go on a roundabout and wait until we go through another cycle of chaos until we have another opportunity to exit the wheel. And then it's like, hey, all right, I want to get out. And the fruit's only ready when it's right. And I can share that like-minded. It took like a severe like criminal accident for myself to like go to jail and having all that, and ankle monitor, you know what I mean? And like thankfully it's been long enough. I got all my stuff vindicated, but it takes that free will moment to really want something different. Cause I think that's the catch 22 of life is we are open to experience so many things, but it's a game of affection. It's
Yeah.
really of that love of what are we going to really invest that into, and what are we really going to put above certain things. So it's always really like what do we care more about in terms of certain things. And life just has a chance, like that loving and ironic way to humble us. And again, it's just, I think that's the shared like-minded with a lot of creatives, is that we have these experiences that really you know have us in this position of, are we going to hold ourselves accountable? Are we going to take ownership for what we have? And I think when you overcome those like initial fears, I feel like that we all experience, you tap into that genuine self. And that's what I feel like, it's that weight's lifted. You're like, oh, this is what it's like to be me again. You know?
So entirely true. And you said a very important word there that I think is accountability. You can't blame anything on anybody else ever, because nobody ever owes you anything. If you don't like something, the only thing you can change about that is you and your own involvement with it. And that's where it stays. And as soon as you start taking accountability for everything and not blaming yourself, but being
Yes.
like, I can do better.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's one thing I can do, and that's to do better. Then things get better, and you suddenly don't have, like, I hate not being in control of things. Like, I'm a little bit of a control freak. I've dialed that back to, and a lot of that comes from my anxiety with things. Like, I'm so anxious about everything all the time. I kind of like need to know what's going on all the time. I've dialed that back a lot because I've gotten a lot less anxious, and in big part to that is because I know exactly the things that I can control, and that's me. I can control everything I'm doing all the time, and I can't control anybody else, but that doesn't, I can control if I'm with them or not when certain things happen. And, that type of accountability and realizing that you are in control of your own life is super important to just like general happiness.
Yeah, dude. And I think that's like, it's funny that you said that, because highlighted the importance of it. Because to me, that's the real start of like the quote unquote like spiritual path, or like this intangible search for like your truth, your happiness, your joy, your love. And it's that moment when you stop just pointing the finger. And again, it's when you recognize, it's like you choose how to respond to things, you choose how to react to situations, you choose how to handle experience, you choose how to process it, reflect on it. You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much of a cessation of this victimhood that I feel like really plagues a lot of our culture, in just the sense that we don't really have that many opportunities to like hold ourselves accountable and fail, especially like kids growing up, man. Like, how important for me failure was, just to learn these lessons. And if you don't have that, like, again, like, how can a kid learn how to walk? We fall repeatedly. So it just goes testament of your own strength, and that own inner fire for more. And I think that always is what it's like, a separating and outlying factor with what I mean, how I see it, like creatives that really just put out that genuine work. And I think that's one of the reasons why we got you on this show, is because you're putting your perspective out there, and it's in so many different outlets. And I think that's the cool thing about, from the rapping and the writing to just the visual, just so many things you can do with just like photos and videos. Like, it's insane, man. Well, I think one thing that I find always does kind of separate people's lives from really achieving their dreams and doing what their heart joys is the ability just to make things happen. And I'm curious, like, did your kind of just drive to just take action on things, is to get yourself out there, did that come from any experience, or was it more so just something that you've always done naturally?
I think in part that's something I've always done naturally. Is I was always the type of person in like a workplace, which is funny because like as far as school was concerned, I was terrible at school, terrible grades, dropped out of college, all that jazz, was not in that. But as far as like workplaces were concerned or things I was passionate about, no matter what, I never said I can't do something. I just figured out a way to do it. Even if I had to ask somebody
Yeah.
for help, it was like, I'm getting this done at all costs. And I think that just carried over into, what I'm doing now. If somebody comes to me with, hey, I want to do this, it's like, okay, let's do that. There's like no question about it. It is possible. And so that was, when I first went through everything and sobered up and I was just starting to work for this radio station, that was what I really did there. I worked for free. I did volunteer work for them 7 days a week for like an entire year. And then it was more down to like 5 days a week for the second year. and now it's, I do less for them now because I'm doing a lot of my own stuff. But I did volunteer work for them 7 days a week for like a year, because I thought it was cool. It was giving me opportunities, and when I would do something well, that was rewarded with more things to do. So I would just keep doing those things, and I would just keep working hard, and I would never question it, and I just kept going. And like I love that type of stuff too. Like I just like being able to get things done. I like feeling accomplished for getting things done.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of where a lot of that comes into play. Like I've always been that way, of just kind of like a go-getter for stuff.
Don't you think that's like kind of an interesting avenue of like the kind of the way the ego of the human experience works in a way? Because it's like the egoic force of like the anxiety would you said it earlier, how it was like your issue was that you wanted the control, because it's like you want to still do things because you always like to act, but it's the control. But when you really just let go of all those expectations and just let it be from the heart, everything just started.
That's
like
true.
It's so cool to see it, dude. I love it.
Yeah, that's true. But in a roundabout way, if I'm the one doing the things, then I'm in control though. And so
Yes.
that feels good too, because
Yeah.
like then, if I'm not relying on outside sources for stuff and I'm relying more on myself, then there's nothing to worry about.
Dude, I love it, man.
It connects all of that stuff together.
Well, it's cool to see, because it's like the moment it was committed, like your whole life. I mean, I didn't realize that your time frame was like a year and a half, dude. I didn't realize that all this started going popping off like that. That just makes it even more like inspiring, and just it validates so much of what I feel like we all come to learn and know naturally, is that just like when you really just dance your dance, the whole world's just like, hey, they finally got it.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing exactly, is like you find that right pocket and you start doing things right, and the time isn't even a thing. Then things just happen. That's why there's no use waiting around for stuff. If you want something, make it happen. It's in your power to make it happen. Sometimes there's things that aren't in your power, but there's always something else that is. There's literally no good excuse to ever wait for something. There are great excuses for resting and relaxing and purposefully and consciously doing less. But if you're waiting for something to happen to you, you're thinking about it wrong.
That's such a good way to put it, dude. Yeah, man, because if you're gonna catch yourself sleeping if you're waiting, like, because I mean, you of all people know, like, just like the arbitrary nature of time itself, that how many minutes, can last like an eternity, and how many just go by like seconds. So, question from Rusty.
I did have questions, but I don't think so anymore. I got it. There's like so much I understand now that it's and what I really got though was the comfortability, if that's the word, that how comfortable you were discussing it. Not that you had to make up an answer for anything, right? Or I have to think about that, or you were worried about looking good, right? Oh, I got to look good, or. And so I think that's one of the problems with a lot of talk shows, that people are more concerned about how they look than actually just sharing the truth of how it is. This is just how it is. The fact that you are who you are today, in spite of all that, like that made you who you are today. Like you have a greater appreciation of life for that. You have a greater appreciation for relationships. You have a greater appreciation for time and how you invest your time and who you invest your time with, right? And so that was really I think my greatest takeaway is like, because when I first got into recovery, I was lost and confused. I was like I thought I was going to lose my creative edge, or my innovative edge. Actually, I didn't really consider myself a creative at that time, but I was extremely innovative. And so when I got into the acceptance mode of just how it is, like this is just it, this is who I am. You said it in a way, but I think I'm just going to put a little closure on it. The best way it was put to me is that you remove the drugs, you remove the alcohol, you still have the problem why you drank and used in the first place, right? Those are both symptoms of the problem. Like, oh yeah, I have a drinking problem. No, you have a living problem, and the symptom is you drink.
Exactly. It's all of that stuff is just a Band-Aid. It just happens to be a bad Band-Aid. Like it's one that the package was already ripped over and some dirt got in there, and like it's not
I'm
an
gonna
ideal
put some mud on
Band-Aid.
this cut.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it'll kind of do the job for a while, but when you try and take it off, it's going to be way worse than it was before.
Yeah, but typically what most people do, just put another Band-Aid on top. Just keep piling Band-Aids. You got 30 Band-Aids on your arm because you don't want to rip off the first one.
Yeah. Oh man.
So you handle it very well, and thank you, because it just inspired me, because that's in the rearview mirror now.
Yeah.
Like that was, good Lord, half my life ago, a different life ago.
Right.
Yeah. And so that's the inspiration I wanted to share, is this book, Richard Bach. What I wanted to read was just open up the first page. There's a quote by him, and it says, "I gave my life to become the person I am right now. Was it worth it?" And that's how we're going to leave the show, people. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. It's been another insightful episode of Creatives Chat.
And that concludes this episode of Creatives Chat. Thank you for watching. Join us every Thursday at 3:33 p.m. Pacific Daily Time as creative minds get together and chat about who knows what. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks again to our sponsors for making this show possible.